I want to get started with class because we have a bunch of things to cover today. I want to do two things. First, I want to give you some more time to work on reading your book. In the second half of class, I want to give you a little bit more support and instruction on what to do for the discussion section of your podcast, which is the main section, and also walk you through making a podcast in Anchor so you know what to do when you actually want to edit and record it. So we're roughly halfway through our book club unit. So you guys should be roughly halfway through your book club book. If you're not, if you're like still on the second chapter, probably you're going to have to find some more time to read. You should be reading this in class, but you'll probably need to spend some time reading it at home as well. So it doesn't take, 3 months for us to get through this. But I'll do 15 minutes of reading now. Before we do that, any questions for me? Cool. Well, grab your book or open up the audiobook or e-text. I'll put 15 minutes on the clock and you can start reading. Okay, everyone, that's 15 minutes. You can please put your books away. And again, for the second half of class, what we'll do is first talk about some ways you can handle this discussion section of the podcast. We'll talk about making the podcast, and then you'll have some time to just work with your group. Okay, so on Canvas, I added this file for those of you who might find it useful. Just to remind you of the structure of the podcast, you're going to have an intro section where you'll state your names, the book you're reading, any kind of opener to grab the reader's attention. Then you'll have a summary. But the main bulk of the podcast will be on the discussion. That's where you're going to go back and forth, or just talk yourself if you're working by yourself, and get into your analysis of the book. From there, you'll have a section where you'll share your favorite line or favorite part, and then you'll make predictions about what's going to happen next. Okay. So for the discussion section, if you're really stuck and you just don't really know what to say or what to ask your partner, here are some things that might help. And I split this into two parts. First is some sentence starters. Kind of think of these like templates, just ways to get the ball rolling with the discussion. Things like, one part of the story I found interesting was, and then you just fill in the gap with your own ideas. So there are these, and then the second part of this is discussion topics. So these aren't specific stems, but they're just broad ideas that are worth addressing. That'll get to some more sophisticated understanding of the book. So for example, setting, is a literary device that you could consider, especially if there's a contrast in setting. You might think of the way place in the book corresponds to the ideas or emotions that the story is trying to communicate. So for example, I'm reading Six of Crows. Most of the story takes place so far in the city of Ketterdam. So if you're talking about that, you could describe the city, the vibe you get from it, and what kind of place it is. And then that contrasts with this prison, the ice court, so that the difference between those two places corresponds to a difference in the story and how the story unfolds. Okay. And then you can go through the rest of these. I won't read them all. I'll just touch on like structure. It might be worth talking about that. And by structure, I'm referring to how the story is laid out. So, how long are the chapters? What's in each chapter? So like again, for my book, each chapter is titled with one of the characters' names. I'm just looking for an example here. So like chapter 2 is Inej, who's one of the characters, and it focuses on her. And then the whole book is structured into 6 parts. So there's 6 characters, six parts. It kind of makes sense that it was structured that way. So you could consider that, why is the book structured a certain way? Is it a non-linear story, or is it told in chronological order? All those are good things to discuss. Then you could kind of think about themes. What are the big ideas or issues raised by the book? What do you think of them? Do you see any connections between the book and what's happening in the world? All that is good stuff that you could think about. Okay. Let me just say, here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to open this up and think, well, Mr. La Luna gave me all of these sentence starters and topics. So I'm going to go through one by one and ask all of the, use all of these sentence starters and then ask all of these questions, and then I'm done and I'm good. No, these are meant to support you if you aren't sure where to begin, but the best podcasts will feel organic. It'll feel like a real conversation that gets pretty deep into what you think about your story so far. Okay, so this is here to help. Some of you might feel like you don't really need it. That's fine. Some of you might lean on it more. If so, great. I hope that is helpful, but it's on Canvas if you need it. How long should the podcast be? Good question. Between 6 and 10 minutes. Okay. And the answer to that, and probably some other questions, are on the assignment sheet, which is in Canvas. All right, so at this point, I'm going to offer you two choices. If you are going to work on Anchor FM to make the podcast, you can stay in here, the main room, and watch me go through how to create and edit a podcast on that. Okay. If you are either very comfortable with Anchor, maybe you've used it before, or maybe you're going to use a different software other than Anchor, I'm just going to let you go into a breakout room with your groups and get started. But I would encourage you to use Anchor. It has a lot of nice features. It's pretty user-friendly, and it allows you to easily edit and add sound effects and things like that. Yeah, you could definitely add fake ads if you want to. I think those are funny. Okay. So again, I'll give you the option right now. I'll open up breakout rooms. You can go into a breakout room if you if you're good with Anchor, if you are like, I'm tech savvy, I could figure it out, and you just want to work on the outline. But if you want to see me go through it and show you how to use it, just hang out here. I'll give you a minute to figure out what you want to do. And just message me if you want me to put you into a breakout room. Okay. Anyone else need to be put in a breakout room if Zoom's not working? Okay, then I'll get started, and then after this, you can go into a room. All right, so Anchor FM is super easy to use, but I'll give you a quick overview of it. So there are two ways to interact with Anchor. You could either do it on your computer on a desktop or on your phone. So I'll show you the desktop first. You just go to anchor.fm instead of anchor.com. It's anchor.fm. You'll have to make an account. It's free. Just use your school email address, and it'll take you to this dashboard. So this is probably easy to do if you're working by yourself, because then you can just record directly on your laptop. If you're going to use Anchor with a partner, and your partner lives across town, then you'll have to use your phone. I'll get to that in a second, but if you're recording by yourself, you can use this. Okay, so first thing you want to do is create a new episode. And then once you click on that, you'll see all your options here. This is to record audio clips. This is your library of audio clips. You could add music from Spotify. You could have listeners message you. You could add transitional sounds. Okay, but let's record a practice podcast. So let's pretend that I'm recording this. Let's pretend that I'm recording a podcast. Colin has his video on, so I'm going to volunteer Colin to be my co-host. So I'm going to say, hi, I'm Mr. La Luna. Colin, you say, and I'm Colin. And then I'll say, and this is our podcast. You cool with that?
It seems too much like a cliche, but fine.
All right, thanks for playing along. Okay, so, hi, I'm Mr. La Luna.
And I'm Colin.
And this is our book club podcast. Great job, fantastic. Okay, so that'll take a second to process. Hi, I'm Mr. La Luna.
And I'm Colin.
And this is our book club podcast. There you go. So once you have that clip done, you just drag it into this window on the right here, and that's kind of your workspace for the podcast. And then the nice thing about Anchor is you can re-record sections. So I kind of flubbed the word or the phrase book club there. So I might delete this and re-record it. Okay. And then you can, record additional sections. So if you want to record again, just click on record again, and I'll just talk this time. I'll say, we're going to start with our summary section. And then that'll process, show up in the library tab. And then again, I can drag it in here. And now what I can do is rearrange these if I want to. If I want to just record one section, re-record one section, I can do that. And then I could mess around with adding effects. So let's say I want to add some music at the beginning. I wouldn't recommend adding like a whole song underneath the whole podcast because that might be sort of distracting. But if you want to start the podcast with a little sound, let's try Anomaly. That's like kind of intense, but I'll use it anyway. You could drag it and put it at the beginning of your podcast. And now I can listen to the whole thing. Hi, I'm Mr. La Luna.
And I'm Colin.
And this is our book club podcast. We're going to start with our summary section. I accidentally started it again. Hi, I'm Mr. La Luna. Stop. But there you go. So that's your preliminary podcast. From there, you can go in and start editing some of these clips. So like this third one, click on these three dots, click edit audio. And then there's this little bit of a pause here where I'm not talking. I can cut that out. So I can click and drag like here. Click on split and then save. So I'll just, let me save as multiple segments. So it split that into two segments. I'll delete the one that's just silence. And now this clip is a little bit short. I've gotten rid of that second of silence. So that's basically the rundown of how it works, and you can mess around with these. And it's just nice because it sounds a little more professional. You could add those effects in, which are kind of cool. Let me just answer a question in the chat. Oh, no, we're good. Okay, so last thing I'll say is the app. So if you're working with someone else and you want to record a podcast with them, but they're at their house and you're not interacting because of COVID, you need to use your phone. So just download the Anchor app on your phone. And on the front page of it, when you open it up and create an account, there's going to be a button that says invite a friend. You click on that, and basically it turns Anchor into your phone, and you can call your friend on the app, send them a link, text them the link, and then they can open it up. And basically you're both on the phone through Anchor, and you could press record and it'll record you talking to each other. And then you could upload it and edit it as you would, as I just explained. Oh yeah, there are a few questions in the chat, but Pat, I'll let you ask your question.
And so more than 2 people can be on that Anchor, like even if it's on your phone?
Yes, I haven't tried it, but from what I understand, yes, you should be able to.
Okay.
Let me see. How do you share the podcast with you? So after you go through all those steps, the final step on Anchor is to publish it. So you'll do that, and then it'll give you a link, and you can email me the link. That's how you share it with me. And yes, you can use a non-academic tone. You could use I, me. You kind of have to. It would sound sort of weird if you were sharing your opinion on the book and never used I. So yeah, it should. If you've listened to podcasts anymore, they're a bit more informal. This isn't like giving a lecture or a speech or anything. It should feel like a conversation. Yeah, Pat.
And so we don't need to have like a word by word script. We can just freeball it kind of.
Yeah, I would actually recommend that you don't use a script, because if you do, it'll sound like a script. It'll sound too artificial. So yeah, I would recommend bullet points, figure out what you want to say, but then just kind of say it. And then again, you could, if it doesn't sound good, if you flub a word, you could always re-record that section.
Okay, yeah. Because last year we had to have a script for our podcasts.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I don't think that. I mean, if you really want to, you can, but
All right.
I don't think it's necessary. And you don't have to submit the script or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Let me see. Okay, so I think that's it. So for the rest of the period, what I'll do is put you guys in breakout rooms, or you can go and go into an empty breakout room and continue working on this. I'll check in with people just to make sure you're on the right track and see if you have any questions.